Don't settle for a logistics-only marriage. Are you ready to transform your marriage to have deeper closeness and connection? Learn more at intimacymastery.com.
From Naples, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about stepping outside your comfort zone for you, your spouse, and for your marriage.
And Maria Irving had this to say about comfort zones. She said, your world will expand for every step you take outside your comfort zone. And I think as we tackle that topic today, what she said really does play out, and it is true. And, you know, we start every episode here at One Extraordinary Marriage with a hug. And a hug is an opportunity for us to celebrate what you're doing, to celebrate the transformation in your marriage. And this hug comes from a comment that was posted in the One Family Private Facebook group in answer to a question about favorite trips and why they were special. And this wife said, one of our most special trips was to the big island of Hawaii and Maui when we went for our 50th birthdays and 10th anniversary. I love that combo. We did a lot of exploring, trying new things together, and saw many magical places. We took a helicopter tour over the lava flows, experienced different climate temp zones from rainforest, deserts to tropical to Arctic. We saw a sunset above the clouds, and we had to stop and put on winter gear halfway up the mountain before sunset. I snorkeled. He dove with the manta rays at night in the ocean. We saw phenomenal beaches, scenery, and the whales were everywhere. The last 2 years, we have started exploring national parks. So here's this whole thing on recreational intimacy, including West Yellowstone, Grand Teton, Zion, Escalante Staircase at Lake Powell, Glacier, and the Smoky Mountains. These trips have been phenomenal. And as we embark on the beginning of our retirement journey, travel is definitely in our future. We even purchased a Sprinter van to go explore the U.S., national parks, and places we have yet to visit.
Oh, I love it.
This is super special. Interestingly enough, and I hadn't even thought about it when I was, looking at this particular hug, but, thinking about all of the steps outside the comfort zone, right? Every national park, because Tony and I have spent some time in national parks over the years, and every step, depending on what you're climbing up and how to get to the views and things like that are, being outside your comfort zone. And you face a lot of things when you're in a national park. And, this past week, and really what was the catalyst for this episode is that one of the mastermind groups that Tony is a part of was having a retreat in St. Augustine, Florida, roughly 6-ish, give or take, traffic through the greater Orlando area. 6 hours from our house. And so because it was going to be in Florida, because Tony was going to be able to drive, and it was a part of Florida that neither one of us have been to since our move here, Tony's like, hey, I really want you to come. And, this was a really interesting environment for me because Tony has known some of these folks for years, like actually the Dustin who puts on the mastermind, 15 years?
Yeah, I've known Dustin. For some of you may have remembered Dustin many, many years ago. He had a site called Engage Marriage, and you may have found us through Dustin. And Dustin and I, at one point in time, we started another business called Fit Marriage many, many years ago.
Wow, back in the day.
And Dustin and I have stayed very close. He's like a brother at this point in time, but a very, very dear friend of mine. And so I've been a part of his mastermind for a number of years now.
And so with that, as good, strong masterminds do, you create relationships and friendships, and the folks in the mastermind get to know you and you them, and not just, strictly at like the business, nuts and bolts level, but you cultivate friendships.
Well, some masterminds can be that way. It took me some time to find this one and be in one where there's a very good balance between business and what are we doing there, and relational and personal life, family life, and how those are impacting us for the good or not good to do what we are able to do to impact others.
And if any of you have met Tony at a live event or have the pleasure to call him a friend, you know how relational he is. So I knew walking into this that not just Dustin, who I know Dustin, like, not to the same level that Tony does, but, have known of him, have been at their house, like all of that for
over 50
years.
We've been to their house. We've hung out.
But there were, there was going to be this cohort of people, and Tony has known them, a lot of them for years, and just, various lengths of time over the years. He knows what's going on in their business, what's going on in their lives, like all of this kind of stuff. And then I am essentially the token spouse, right? And
there's one other spouse there.
Oh, you're right. For like half a day.
Yeah, half a day. Yes.
And so it was really funny because when we showed up, Dustin, giving me a hug, and he's like, "Hey, you're welcome to participate in as much or as little as you want. We're in St. Augustine. We stayed at this, oh my gosh, the Embassy Suites in St. Augustine. Fabulous. Right at the end, the beach, like gorgeous. Florida was in its full glory. And Dustin's like, "Hey, you can, like if you want to go sit on the beach and just enjoy being up here, that's like whatever you want to do, Elisa." And I just looked at Dustin and I said, "Well,
Tony, you looked at Dustin.
I looked at Dustin.
Yes, that's right.
And I said, that would be fabulous. And I would love to go sit on the beach. But Tony has made it very clear to me that I am not here as a vacationer. I am here as a participant." And that was, that was how I was going into this weekend. And, this whole concept of stepping out of your comfort zone really came to like this kind of pivot point or like crux, right? Where I had a couple choices.
And let me just interject real quickly. So for the most part over the last few years, especially coming out of the pandemic, if there is a business conference going on, if there's a mastermind going on, I'm typically the one going to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm the one just meeting people. I've spoken at different conferences. I spoke at this mastermind. There was a shorter session, and we talked about the 6 pillars of intimacy. I did bring Elisa up on with me because I felt like, and I joked about this, I'm like, hey, I know Dustin wanted me to talk about something that would be helpful for you guys in your marriage, but we're talking about 6 pillars, and we gave everybody a book, and I'm like, well, the actual author of the book is Elisa. It's a with Tony, so I brought her up. In any case, I go to these events, and so many people want to meet Elisa. And Elisa is more than happy to, when I'm gone, to be at home in a quiet house by herself. Our children are older and gone. Our youngest is still here, so she would do something with her, probably lunch or dinner or whatever it may be. But Elisa's more than happy to just do the work that she needs to do, curl up on the couch, read a book, and be good. And so
all my introverts right now are going, "That sounds perfect, Tony. So what's the problem?"
But so many people in these business environments want to meet Elisa because, one, she is the marriage coach here at One Extraordinary Marriage, has done extremely well at helping many couples. Probably 500 plus couples is something around what we figure at this point in time over the years to impact marriages and lives and everything. So it was before she even got to this point of like where I know you're going to talk about, stepping outside your comfort zone, just having to deal with it as I was saying, hey, we're going to go together.
I'm still rolling my eyes because this is those moments, right? These are, and I know we're talking about a business mastermind, and some of you are like, I would never go to a business mastermind. Stop for a second and just think about this, because there are going to be so many points in your marriage where you have this choice to make. Do I step out of my comfort zone or don't I? Mm-hmm. Right? Will I do something that I'm uncomfortable with, or will I say no? And then what will my attitude be if I choose to step into it, right? Will I be a complete pain in the butt, or will I be a full participant, right? And those two things, right? Like, you can say you're going to go, you can say you're going to try something new, and then you're just a complete jerk about it. Mm-hmm. Right. And that could be male or female, right? Where you're just like, I'm here, I acquiesced, but I'm just kind of just doing it to check a box. Right. And there are so many places where, within the marriage, now come out of the business mastermind for a second, within marriage, where you can choose to stay in your comfort zone. And we've done this over the years where, the conversations are just the same conversations because we don't want to go a little bit further and maybe bring up that topic that's going to be uncomfortable. You know why? Because it might get a little yuck. Mm-hmm. And so, you know what? Let's just avoid it. Or the dates that you do, right? Where you're just like, you know what? It's good enough. Let's not step out of our comfort zone because we might not have a great date. Okay, I mean, I just got to say, like, my dear sweet husband, when we lived up in the Northwest, wanted to find like just incredible hot springs. It did not happen, folks. It didn't.
It did. Hot Springs, Montana was a nice one. You were not in a good spot, like mentally, I would say.
Okay, that could, I mean,
it was a beautiful place. Lolo Hot Springs, I absolutely agree. That was
the crab cooker.
No, crab cooker, honey. Crab cooker is on the east side of the Sierras.
Okay, but I was like all West Coast. Like I'm just lumping them all together.
West Coast.
I went from the Northwest to
Northwest my point is, to Bishop is California. Is that's a wide swath.
My point is that was like for a while that was his thing. Like I'm going to go find and we had a lot of not great dates, but we have a lot of phenomenal memories about the fact that those were not great experiences.
I think I do want to just say a piece about that. Sometimes we set up expectations that it's going to be the best thing, and I'm not saying we don't set up expectations, and yet when it doesn't meet our expectations, can we still find those memorable moments in the adventure, in the date, in the conversation that allowed us to get outside of that comfort zone that we've been stuck in?
I want to say one other place where, I see a lot of marriages just as a marriage coach get kind of stuck in their comfort zone. And that's in their sex life, whether it's in the positions you try or in foreplay or things like that, where it's just like, yeah, you know what? It's good. It's like good enough. Right. And why are you smirking?
I'm just listening because I love when you say stuff like that because I just use it like, I'm like, oh, yes, she's right. And so when we get into a position or foreplay or something where it's like, oh, this is the same thing, honey, I'm going to be like, it's time for you to get out of your comfort zone.
Okay. And this is why we do these conversations live on the air with you guys, right? So that we have these moments, right? We talk about the same things that we are dealing with as a couple that's been married 28 years, right? And when we get stuck in this comfort zone, when we don't go outside the comfort zone in our marriages, our worlds actually get smaller over time because there's no anticipation. There's no variety. Things are just the same old, same old. And when you get into that place, you can sense, or actually, sometimes it's not a sense. Sometimes it is like smack dab in the middle of the two of you that there is all of this frustration or resentment or disconnect. You can start having your thoughts like, well, why am I doing this? Right? Like, why try and show up? Why try and put forth effort? Why try? Because it's just like, we're just going to stay in our comfort zone. We're not going to actually push. But when you decide to step outside your comfort zone and with full participation, right? Because I will tell you, you guys, I had a conversation with our 19-year-old before Tony and I went on this trip because she's like, Mom, what are you thinking? And I said, well, here's how this is going to go down. I am committed to going on this trip with your dad, and I am committed to full participation. Because if it doesn't go well, at least I can say I fully participated and he knows that I had a good attitude, and then he can just be like, look, we'll never do that again. Right? But if I showed up, but I had a lousy attitude, first of all, it would have been a miserable trip and that drive home would have been exhausting.
Yeah.
But it was about like, how do I honor Tony and our marriage by fully showing up?
And I do want to say, I made sure that we got to go into downtown St. Augustine. We got to see the fort. We did other things. We adventured out of just the mastermind. We had an amazing time walking around Old St. Augustine, and going to coffee shops and seeing new things. And so for Elisa, I know that brings her joy. I know that something she loves to see and do. And Elisa's not over the top. I've learned this about my beautiful wife over the years. I would love for her to just be like, oh my gosh, like show like this is amazing. No, she's having a wonderful time. She just, I can tell she's taking it in, and I get more like, oh my gosh, look at this, look at these walls. Like, let's go touch them and let's go look at them and let's, and Elisa's like, wow, this is really cool. Like, so I made sure that it wasn't solely like, hey, you need to come here. You need to do this mastermind. We're going to just sit in this room all day long and not have any other adventuring, which is something that we both enjoy. And I think it gets us out, both of us, out of our comfort zone because, traveling over these last few months when we were in Tulsa or Omaha, unfortunately the weather kept us inside, and I could tell both of us were sort of like, man, we're sort of stuck, and we want to go out. And so I think we both stepped out in times and in places during this trip.
Well, because full participation isn't just me showing up. And I love that Abby and I actually had this conversation before we went, because there was also the opportunity for Tony to fully be engaged with me, not just with the others in this mastermind community, but also like, hey, there's a window of time. Let's you and I go do this. Let's get up and we'll go have breakfast together. So it was a both and, because when you get into that place, when you're fully participating, stepping outside your comfort zone, you step into a place where there are new discoveries, where you have deeper connection, where you really start to feel on so many, in so many different pillars of intimacy, that you are connecting and making those memories. And I'll say, you know what, it is so easy to be in this place where you step out of your comfort zone, or you hear the phrase, step out of your comfort zone, but to actually do it, to have those actions, to go, okay, well, like, how do I break a lifetime of habits, right? What do I do? What are those actions? We're going to talk about that after this break. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, they often fade. That's where Prolon comes in. Its 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now they're upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. We're so excited to experience Prolon Next Gen and see results for ourselves. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering One Extraordinary Marriage Show listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/marriage. That's PROLONLIFE.com/marriage to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/marriage.
Hear that? It's SpringFest savings calling your name, only at Lowe's. Right now, get a free Select Ego 56-volt battery when you buy a Select Ego trimmer, blower, or mower. Plus, get your choice of any 2 bags of Miracle-Gro organic soil mix for only $16. Shop these can't-miss deals in-store or online today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/2. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Excludes Hawaii.
We're back. And we're talking about those skills that will help the two of you, skills and strategies actually, that help you get outside of your comfort zone. And I want to just give you a word to think about first when you're in this place of, because a lot of times the reason we don't step out of our comfort zone, let me just circle around to this for a second. A lot of times we don't step out of our comfort zone because we feel uncomfortable. Right? And we're experiencing resistance. If you have ever coached with me at some point in time, I've probably asked you, well, what's the resistance? Right? And so if you can get into this place of going, hold on, the reason I'm likely to stay in the place is because of this, then I can use this one word, I'm going to give it to you in just a second, to help me identify that and then start to move forward, move towards my spouse. And the word is the word is tire. The T is for take a breath. Right? Just pause for a second. We're so quick when there's something that might push us out of our comfort zone to just throw up the no and just be like, I'm done. Right? Like I can just no, but take a breath. T. I. Identify your resistance. What is the specific resistance? Well, I'm afraid of, being uncomfortable. I'm afraid, like one of the things we did when we were in St. Augustine was Tony wanted to walk the wall along the fort. Now, no joke, the night before, I'd had a dream about drowning. And so we're walking on this, I don't know, it's probably 15 feet high wall?
Sure.
Like if it went down into the water?
Sure.
And it was at an angle, and I was wearing sandals, not the best shoes to explore. And I was just like I could feel I'm like, I had a dream last night about drowning. And he's like, you're not going to drown. I'm going to hold your hand. Right? And so it was just enough for me to be able to say, I don't like this because of this dream.
And I heard her, and I totally was like, hey, I hear you. I have your hand. She said it a little bit as we were already into this on this wall. So it wasn't like, hey, let's just jump off right here. And so, but I gave her so much credit and understood and just said, hey, no idea. You didn't tell me about this dream you were drowning. But here I am. We're going to just walk right over there. I got your hand. You're good. Like, I got you.
The R is for remember your why. What's the deeper motivation, right? In this case, it was for me to be fully participating with Tony and very specifically enjoying this time that it was just the two of us in the midst of this group week, right? And then in the E is engage despite this discomfort, right? So you still engage even though you're uncomfortable, right? That may show up in the conversations you have. That may show up in, like I did, taking my husband's hand and saying, all right, I know he loves to, like, if there's an edge, he's going to want to go right to it, you know, that kind of thing. I have this picture of him at the point where I was like, yeah, I'm not walking down there, but I've got this great picture of him from a distance and still able to engage. So again, that's tired. Take a breath, identify your resistance, remember your why, and engage despite the discomfort.
And just for a moment, take a second and just think about where you can get outside your comfort zone. And it could be, as Elisa shared up here, it could be around a conversation that you need to have. In any of the pillars of intimacy, you got to get out that comfort zone, right? Because it becomes easy over time to talk logistically about our marriage. Where are you going? What are you doing? How's this? You know, I need you to go grab this, you know, this over here. I need to do these chores, blah, 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 right? Are you willing to take a moment and go, okay, what's the conversation we really need to have? You know, I need to step out of my comfort zone and address this area that's been really hurtful, painful, or something that's just been bugging me. You know, is it a date? Like, hey, is there something I could be doing differently? Like, where could we go? And even like when Elisa was talking about sexual intimacy, when it comes to maybe how you're romancing or your foreplay or even your sexual intercourse, those positions you're doing, you know, take a breath around that. Where's the resistance? Another word for that would be like, where are the walls coming up? Where are you getting defensive when your spouse asks you? Like when your spouse goes, hey, let's go from behind, and you're like 0 to 60, where's that coming from? You know, where's that fear? What's that look for?
Totally random example.
I understand that, but let's just let's just talk about this, because there was a time in our own marriage where that was a big issue, because face to face you were okay with. There was something about not being able to see my face when we would go from like a rear entry that there was resistance from you.
Absolutely.
I remember. I don't remember the exact time period in the year of the marriage, but I do remember there was a time on us trying to like, well, what's the issue? Like, in trying to address these resistance. You know, remember your why. And I would say for most of us, we forget too often the vows we made on our wedding day. And if you want a why, there's your why. There's nothing more to, like, the reason I'm willing to go outside my comfort zone is because before you, everyone, and God, I said I do. I took vows that said I would be with you. Now, if you need to get more specific on your why, then dive deeper into it. And then, as Elisa said, engage despite the discomfort. Sometimes when we're doing something new, our heart starts to race, our palms get sweaty, our head isn't clear, things seem like they're moving faster or slower than we'd like them to, and yet are we willing to engage? Are you willing to grab your spouse's hand when you haven't grabbed it in 3 months or 3 years? Are you willing to go outside your comfort zone? Because I'm telling you, that hand holding right there that you haven't done in a while, I'm telling you it's going to strengthen your physical intimacy pillar. It's going to do a lot more. So you're willing to do it.
I mean, I know it's not easy to step outside of your comfort zone. I talk to people every week in coaching who are struggling to get out of their comfort zone. And hearing and having the head knowledge about the tire method. I mean, it's one thing to hear about it. It's one thing to, understand what those 4 steps are, or to know what the 4 steps are. But it's a whole other thing when you get into this place of understanding, when you go deep, when you actually start to internalize what those 4 steps do and what that looks like, not just at the head level, but taking it down to the heart level, and how you actually put those 4 steps into practice. And it's one thing to be able to give you this knowledge, but to be able to go deeper, it's hard to do that in a single podcast episode. It's why this month we're going to go deeper into it within Intimacy Mastery. Right? Because we want to give it the time. We won't want to just have like, hey, here it is, run with the head knowledge, but it's getting into this place of making it heart knowledge and heart action. And if you want to learn more about Intimacy Mastery, go to intimacymastery.com.
Yeah. You know what? It's time for you to get out of your comfort zone. What are you willing to do? Where are you willing to go? What are you willing to try to have the extraordinary marriage you desire by stepping out? 2 things we say here all the time: be intentional, take action. This week's episode is about those 2 things. Which pillar of intimacy do you need to step out of your comfort zone? That's your intention. And then what are you going to do to take action around that so that you can have the extraordinary marriage you desire? Go do it this week. As Elisa said, if you want more on this and more exclusive insights with us and others in the One family, come join us in Intimacy Mastery. You can do that at intimacymastery.com. You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.